me and for us, it is incredibly natural just to ask um, the question for El Bautizo de Miami, which is whoever arrives in Miami, immediately you ask. So it was before, was Fidel a dictator? Was Raúl a dictator? Is Díaz-Canel a dictator? And then in the case of Venezuelans, it's exactly the same. Do you think Hugo Chavez was a dictator? Do you think that Nicolás Maduro is a dictator? And then by asking that question, the exile communities immediately can position you and say you're with us or you are not with us.
Life a la Latina presenta Socialiciando. Sí, Socialiciando. Con Alicia Civita.
Hablemos de este proyecto maravilloso que ustedes han comenzado. Como mamá de un periodista que está comenzando, my first question would be, who convinced who? Or how did this happen? Because I've been trying to get him to do something with me, and he go like, that would be cringe.
No, I don't remember exactly, Paula, but I think we've been having this conversation for years.
Yeah.
We originally wanted to do a TV show together because both of us were on TV. And then we started playing with the idea of a documentary, working together, going to the border. At some point, I think, Paula, we went to the border, right? And we did something together. And
Yeah.
and then in the last Democratic Convention,
Yeah.
we walk with a cell phone doing a selfie for both of us, and that's when we actually experimented doing something in English together.
Yeah, we did
that-
we did a TikTok together at the DNC, and we were essentially commenting and doing like a very light coverage on the DNC. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of working together, like I think that this was a very like organic moment for both of us, obviously, as we're, the media landscape is changing, and I think it felt very natural in a sense, Yeah.
And at the end, all the moving parts, our agency CAA worked with iHeart. They wanted the same thing, and at the end, everybody wanted the same thing. The question was exactly what to do, and what came naturally was a podcast. We know that everybody is doing a podcast, but this was the perfect way for us to communicate what we wanted to do. So it was going to be two things. One, an intergenerational conversation between a father and a daughter, and then something political, having always a guest and relating that conversation to a Latino issue.
Yeah.
And the idea to do it in English, where did that come from?
Not from me.
I mean,
Well,
go ahead.
no, dale, Paul.
No, I think there's I think there's like an understanding of just how the Latino audience is changing, right? And so I think there's a recognition that a majority of us are now US born, under the age of 50, speaking more English than Spanish. And so I think just like paying attention to that. B, I think still trying to figure out if there is a space for an English speaking Latino audience, and also perhaps the Spanish language audience that grew up watching my dad. Like, is there a space for conversations? Because I think this is a podcast where, yes, a majority of the conversations will be in English, but they will also be in Spanglish, and sometimes Spanish will come out. And I think that will feel very familiar to, I think, anyone. So I think that's part of the experiment. Can we bridge together generations? And then third, I think there's a symbolism of being present in the English speaking world as Latinos, right? I think it's very, very important for us to almost insert ourselves in a space that typically doesn't have voices like ours. As I think there's like an intention behind that as well.
Yeah, I agree with Paula. At some point, it's not only trying to reach Latinos who speak Spanish or English, but go beyond that. It's a matter of representation, and it's a matter of numbers. With Latinos, we're talking about 65 million. With everybody, it's more than 300 million. So why not? I mean, if we want to be relevant and we want to answer the question, what did you do during these years, this is the answer.
Of course, no, and I think it's important that we not only talk among ourselves, which is
Totally.
what we're saying, and
Yes.
this is part of what we want to do also to we filter the stories through the Latino lens, but that doesn't mean that it's only stories about Latinos
Exactly.
or for Latinos, which I think it's a common mission.
Yeah.
Romper la burbuja, I think you,
Exacto.
yeah, we don't want to live in a bubble. And I think we agree with you. This is an effort to reach out beyond the Latino community and beyond, in my case, my comfort zone. I worked for 38 years as an anchorman in Spanish. As you can see, I have an accent, but it doesn't matter. This is a country of many, many accents, and everybody should be welcome.
Yeah.
Bueno, nosotros estuvimos oyendo el primer episodio. A mí me pareció personalmente fabuloso por la figura que escogieron, no solamente por el relevancy, sí, aquí estamos, en la relevancia, sino por lo importante que es entender esta conversación de las etiquetas políticas, ¿no? Nosotros, él y yo tuvimos un pleito, lo tuvimos que parar cuando le preguntaste, Jorge, a Dami por Cuba y por Venezuela. Yo ya dije, no quiero oír más, ese tipo, prefiero votar por Cuomo. Me ofendí, que me imagino que muchas de la audiencia de nacido en Latinoamérica se sentiría, y después al final les mandó esta aclaración. Yo sentí, Paula, que tú moviste la conversación una vez de que él 3 veces dijo, I haven't thought about it, que es the most media trained answer in the history of mankind. Después él, como que al final, yo creo que, Jorge, no sé si tú naturalmente hubieras vuelto a insistir, y Paola lo movió y siguió, y al final se logró el objetivo, pues que se pronunciara. ¿Cómo se manejan, primero, cómo vivieron ese momento, número uno, desde los 2 puntos de vista, y segundo, cómo se manejan esos estilos diferentes?
Paola?
A lo mejor yo puedo hablar a little bit about the setup, because I think we both kind of build on each other. I think because I live in New York and because I'm hyper aware of like the Latino community here, one of the things that when we were prepping for this interview that I told my dad was just how there was this very new and large presence of Venezuelan immigrants here. And I think that then naturally, I think took you, Dad, to kind of think of this question that I think my dad has asked multiple leaders in his throughout his career. And so I think that kind of was the setup. Now that I think it's obviously sparked an obvious interest. And then you can speak about that moment for you.
Yeah, I think it has to do also with our background. Remember, I live in Miami. Miami has been my house, my home for more than 30 years.
Yeah.
And Paola is partly Cuban. And for me and for us, it is incredibly natural just to ask the question for El Bautizo de Miami, which is whoever arrives in Miami, immediately you ask. So it was before, was Fidel a dictator? Was Raúl a dictator? Is Díaz-Canel a dictator? And then in the case of Venezuelans, it's exactly the same. Do you think Hugo Chavez was a dictator? Do you think that Nicolás Maduro is a dictator? And then by asking that question, the exile communities immediately can position you and say, you're with us or you are not with us. So for me, it's been a very natural question immediately to ask everyone about that. And I think it says a lot about what you think about democracy. So for me, it was, so maybe, Alicia, I think that's what we can add to the conversation nationwide. Questions that maybe other journalists would not ask. It comes incredibly natural for us to talk about those things. So it was important, if you are identifying as a democratic socialist, I think it is simply natural as a journalist to ask what are the distinctions between a democratic socialist and an authoritarian socialist, as it is Díaz-Canel in Cuba and Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela.
So when placed within the context of Trump, I guess, for lack of a better word, fear mongering about El Tren de Aragua and the strikes on the fishing boats and openly promoting regime change in Venezuela. Do you think is there a bit more caution that you feel you have to take when asking a question like that?
No, I feel complete freedom to ask whatever I want. I don't see any problem with asking any question, which is the beauty of being an independent journalist. That I feel absolutely free to ask that question. Now that's a very sensitive subject about what the US has a long history of interventions in Latin America. So even when you ask Venezuelans about that, it's not an easy answer for them. They don't want Nicolas Maduro. Clearly, they don't want Nicolas Maduro. 8 million Venezuelans have left the country. But when you go from that to asking them, so do you think that an invasion or a military operation by the US is the solution? The answer is not that easy. I mean, nobody wants Nicolás Maduro, but it is important on how you get rid of him. So the idea is that the dictatorship que se rompa desde dentro. That's the idea, not from the outside.
And I'll add to that going back to the kind of, I think the questions around like being hyper aware of what it means to be a journalist today within this media landscape, within a presidency that, to your point, is fear mongering and is weaponizing the term communist, right? Is I think for us and for me, I think that question is necessary because, again, I think we have the beauty and the freedom to ask a question, particularly when you're labeling yourself as a democratic socialist. Like, of course, that's a fair question. And at the same time, I think an equally important question was for him to describe what he means by democratic socialism, because for us, I think we're both hyper aware of the way in which both parties have weaponized and criminalized those terms. Is I think understanding the way in which we as journalists can feed into narratives is very important as well. No, but I think that to me was the balance. Now, allow him to explain what he means by this, like give him an opportunity to describe it. And then, yeah, also answer what I believe is a very fair question around that.
Now, Alicia, going back to your original question, I think it is really interesting because I think Paola and I are realizing as we work together for the first time, how different we are in terms of styles.
Yeah.
I've been trained. Yeah, remember, I've been trained for 40 years to have 5 minutes
Right.
and then be very aggressive from the beginning because I don't have time. So my questions tend to be direct and hopefully very clear. And Paola is really interested in the context, in explaining, in making sure that it's nuanced and fair. So those two styles are working together nowadays.
And it's beautiful. Mire, eso a mí por lo menos me emociona, porque me parece que es como debería ser, ¿no? Y en
And
ese
she
sentido,
handles the language much better than I do. So
Oh, no,
my
but if we're
questions
gonna be
tend
in
to be
Spanish,
simple.
but I do think that the language is not a barrier at all. I mean, first of all, your English is incredible. Y Jorge, stop saying that. Basta.
I'll stop saying that.
Yeah.
Porque no, pero sí creo que tú te sientes que puede ser como un little handicap y honestly it's not.
Yeah.
Visto desde afuera, le preguntaba yo a él, estamos oyendo tu acento, Paola, también que nos reímos porque tu acento es very American, but very Miami también, your English,
Yeah,
¿no?
I know.
Entonces nos estábamos riendo porque I'm starting to, I mean, I've been here for 31 years y recién, ahora ya, obvio puedo oír el sur y eso, pero los little nuances, ahorita es cuando los estoy oyendo.
Claro, claro.
Y es muy bonito oír toda, o sea, se mezcla todo y siento que es espectacular. En ese sentido, quería saber, cuando ustedes empezaron, ¿cómo es la lista de invitados? ¿Cuál era el wish list? ¿Cuántos consiguieron? ¿Cuántos episodios van a hacer? Toda esa
Yeah,
parte.
we're going to do 45 podcasts within a year.
A lot.
And we've been very happy and very lucky to get almost everyone we wanted. So
And we're just starting.
we already taped 6, and then in a couple of weeks we're gonna tape another 5 or 6, and that's the way it's gonna go. And then at some point we wanna be able to react to breaking news, and therefore we're gonna do it remote as we're talking right now.
Yeah.
Y en ese sentido, ¿todos son políticos?
No, Paola, you have the list too, no?
See, no, we from the start we knew that we wanted to talk to, yes, like politicians, but also artists, thinkers, activists, and just honestly like anyone that has any type of influence in moving the needle. And so even some of the first interviews that we recorded, yes, Zoran, but also John Leguizamo. We have Anthony Romero from the ACLU. That's the next one, and which really gave us like a big overview of the legal landscape and what that looks like. We have V Spehar, who's a TikTok influencer. And then in DC, we will have people like Jose Andres, Karine Jean-Pierre. And honestly, I think our idea is like also to try and talk to Republicans, try and talk to people in the administration. Like we want to talk to as many people as possible and like have a healthy debate with everyone. And so I think this also includes people within the Trump administration. Yeah.
Yeah, I just came back from San Francisco. We did an interview with Isabel Allende, but we would love to talk to everyone within Stephen Miller, Tom Homan. We're ready for that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's exactly the kind of conversation that we need.
Yep.
Now the question is, are they ready for you?
We hope so. I hope that after this interview, they get it that we want to talk to them, and we've been reaching, and hopefully they'll say yes. Yeah, we're ready to talk to them. I think it is very clear in these very difficult days that an open conversation is seriously needed about every issue.
And then there's a strategic element to this, right? I mean, this is now a Republican Party in a Trump White House that got 48% of the Latino vote. And so I think that maybe they feel, I would imagine that they feel a need to expand and to reach out to that community with their message. And I feel like when immigration is at the heart of their agenda, then I think it makes sense to talk to Latino journalists and to address the community directly. And I think to shy away from that, it wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Particularly now that they're losing the support. So it'd be the time to talk.
Exactly. That's so interesting, Alicia, because Paola wrote a whole book on how there was a trend of Latinos moving to the right.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw probably the same thing that you saw, Alicia, that this morning CNN was reporting that the number of Latinos defecting the Republican Party because of Trump is growing, and especially in Texas. You wouldn't expect it in Texas. So I think the economy, but mostly the rates and the way immigrants and Latinos are being treated by ICE agents, I think that's having a huge impact on the perception of Latinos in the US.
Yeah, I was surprised. I think we saw the same study, and it's mostly starting with women, which always drives the conversation. So that's interesting.
Look, you just have to see one video of one little boy, 7 or 8, crying when they're taking their mom or their dad, and that's it. You don't need to see more.
Ahora, Jorge, te quería preguntar algo que me encantó fue una de las primeras entrevistas, o sea, cuando te animaste, espero yo que lo tuvieras planificado o no, arrancar en esta nueva vida de agente libre o monomedio, como decir, ir a Los Ángeles, y fuiste directo y la alcaldesa de Los Ángeles te abrió las puertas, ¿no? Cuando uno pierde el apellido de Casado, como decir Jorge Ramos de Univisión, es scary. en gran manera, porque no sabes si la gente te quería solo por ti o qué tanto pesa eso de dónde vienes. ¿Qué se sintió que te abrieron las puertas así de inmediato a ti solo, sin el peso de la empresa?
Bueno, agradezco que la alcaldesa hubiera querido hablar conmigo, pero más que nada agradezco que la gente quisiera hablar conmigo y en esta época de persecución a los latinos y a los inmigrantes, que, que sintieran que yo puedo abrir este espacio ahora a través de las redes sociales para que ellos hablen y para defenderlos. Como inmigrante, eh, I've always said that I'm an immigrant. I still feel like an immigrant, and I just want to make sure that those immigrants who came after me would have the same opportunities that I had. So it is very, well, it's great that people still believe what I say because as a journalist, credibility is the only thing that matters, and that they are following me by the millions, honestly, on social media. And I truly appreciate that. So I wasn't ready to retire, Alicia. I couldn't retire nowadays. And I think, as we said in the beginning, that I want to have an answer when people ask me, what did you do during those years?
Ya, no, obvio. ¿Y cuándo vas a bailar las clases de salsa?
Mañana,
Oh, yeah?
No.
mañana. Sí,
Are
claro,
you?
mañana me invitaron al concierto de Bad Bunny en Puerto
Like, you're
Rico.
gonna go?
Ah, vas a ir
Yeah, yeah.
al de Amazon.
Yeah. No, no que al de Amazon, me voy a San Juan.
Claro, claro, pero es que el que va a hacer el
It's gonna
streaming
be-
Amazon, sí, sí, el
Yeah, yeah,
sábado.
yeah.
Te van a poner en la casita?
No creo que me pongan en la casita, pero voy a estar muy cerca de él, ahí al frente. Y llevo varios meses tomando clases de salsa. Hola, Paola, no te rías que tú fuiste a una
No,
clase conmigo,
I am as bad as my dad is. I will admit.
pero I'm ready
I
to
don't-
dance with Bad Bunny, ¿no?
A ver,
Mi-
pero no, ya va, que esto ya es
Es cierto,
diferente,
es
esto es
cierto.
personal. ¿Estás llevando un plus one que te grabe?
That's the
¿Vas con
Estoy
question.
llevando a
Chiqui?
un amigo productor que quizás me grabe,
Really?
pero mira, cada vez que me preguntan, para que veas en qué grado tan alto tengo a Bad Bunny, cada vez que me preguntan quién me falta por entrevistar, siempre digo el Papa, y ahora el Papa León estoy buscando entrevistarlo, al igual que el Papa Francisco, que estuve a punto de entrevistarlo, al Papa y Bad Bunny, ahí
Y a
están.
Benito.
Sí, sí, ahí están.
Bueno, ya a ver un 1 degree of separation, por ahí le damos.
Yo sé, espero que sí.
Qué maravilla. Bueno, ya por último, Paola, eh, cuando uno tiene padres así que they just don't quit,
They don't quit.
es muy inspirador. A
Sí.
veces yo me imagino que también es una presión de live up to the myth in a way, ¿no? ¿Qué es la cosa más loca que te han dicho cuando que la gente reconoce que eres la hija de Jorge Ramos?
Bueno, siempre empieza con todas las mujeres que querían ser my stepmom. So
Sí.
that's obviously the first thing. Pero sabes que lo más bonito es que it's always been, I've been so lucky and so privileged where like, and it is an experience of privilege. I mean, it is, no? But I never felt like I never felt the pressure because I had two parents that were always like,
Mhm.
do what you love, have curiosity, and curiosity will drive you there. And I can say with complete honesty, like that drove me to the place that I am today, you know? And so I've never kind of measured myself against them, but I have always been so inspired by two parents that like have lived very intensely, have been driven by two careers in journalism that has taken them around the world and to use their words with intention. And that's something that I take very seriously, like using words with intention. And so I feel very, very lucky, honestly, truly.
Bueno, y tu abuelo también, que todos
claro,
admirábamos
mi
tanto.
abuelo.
En la familia. Y
total.
ahora, Jorge, cuando mi hijo me dijo que quería ser periodista, yo quedé en shock. porque yo no soy de esta gente que quiero que uno, claro, hay gente que como los va entrenando para que sigan los pasos y la gente se enoja si no lo siguen o no. Yo no me lo esperaba, la verdad. Yo pensé que él iba a ser cineasta. Y cuando ha comenzado esta carrera, en este momento a mí me da pánico, me da orgullo, obviamente, admiración, pero también me da miedo porque no estamos viviendo momentos fáciles, no solamente desde la coerción de the freedom of speech, but the business itself seems to be collapsing into itself, no? How do you see it?
Let me change the question to him. Why do you want to be a journalist?
Well, I think since I turned 18 on election day exactly in 2020, and a little bit before that, I started becoming more interested in politics and issues of social justice. And I felt that, and I did an internship for a local representative, and I don't know, I just didn't feel satisfied doing that, but I wanted to kind of be involved in that world and make como hacer un cambio como significant. And I feel like speaking truth to power, as you've said, and talking with these people and talking about issues that maybe don't even get covered very much in the media that I'm interested in could be a valid and a valid path to be able to do that, to make a kind of change.
Yeah, I think you're obviously are choosing the right profession. Garcia Marquez said that this was the most beautiful profession in the world, and it is. Honestly, I think you'll have the opportunity to travel around the world and meet the people that make history. Then it'll keep you young always because you have to stay young in order to be relevant. And then finally, you are going to be a rebel all your life. So the possibility of traveling, staying young, and being a rebel, no other profession in the world can give you that. So when we die, you'll be happy.
That's all we can get. That's
Yeah,
all we-
exactly.
Sí, ahora se metió en el rabbit hole de todo los influencers de derecha y de izquierda.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we need
No, pero
people to
learning,
understand the
no,
world.
it's crazy.
Yeah, we need people that understands the world and is willing to explain that world to others. The internet is so full of misinformation and disinformation that we journalists have an advantage and a responsibility to explain the world and to give the facts to millions who don't want to hear them.
Yeah.
So it is an incredible opportunity, and we have an advantage.
Yeah. Bueno, entonces yo voy a terminar diciendo que I feel that nowadays, not only being a journalist, but saying that you're a proud Latino in this country is an act of rebellion in a
It
way.
is. Mhm.
And I'm so thankful that people like you are making us proud and giving us strength to keep doing it every day and saying it louder than ever. So thank you so much. And the podcast is, I mean, the first episode was amazing. I cannot imagine what's to come.
Well, thank you. And I think I'll say us, nosotros cuatro. We're doing that. No, we're never alone.
Yeah.
So hay que seguir en esto. Gracias a los dos.
Sí,
No,
gracias.
gracias.
Estoy totalmente de acuerdo con-
Thank you. Bye.
Hasta luego.